All right, it's the Final Word World Cup Daily. Day 15 at Pune is where India played Bangladesh. Adam Collins and Cam Ponsonby with you. We're in London. We're here for Westfield, London. Westfield, Stratford City, more extra, less ordinary. India in wonderful nick. Cam, tell us all about their victory in 30 seconds to start.
India won again by 7 wickets this time. Bangladesh actually got off to quite an exciting start. They're about 110 for 1. Tanzid Hassan got 50 at the top of the order in good time. But then India, they're just good. And whenever you think you're getting ahead of the game, they draw it back. A fantastic bowling effort again from Kuldeep Yadav and Ravindra Jadeja. And you can pick out any bowler you really want to be honest. Keep Bangladesh to 250 on what was an absolute road. At the halftime, commentators were going, nowhere near enough. No one thought it was enough. It wasn't enough. Rohit Sharma, Shubman Gill, Virat Kohli. What else do you need? Win by 7 wickets.
Yeah, they win by 7 wickets. They win in the 42nd over. They are chasing so well. So they haul down Australia's tally in 42 overs, Afghanistan's in 35, Pakistan's in 31, and 42nd today to go back to the top of the table on net run rate as well. So overtaking where New Zealand were yesterday. I kind of admired what Bangladesh did at the toss, batting first, trying to not fall into the same error that Afghanistan made yesterday, the reluctance to take the game forward. Bangladesh tried to, and you're right, their opening partnership, Litton Das seemingly always making runs, did so against India last year in the World Cup as well. Tanzid looks like a real find. Hadn't played a lot of international cricket before the World Cup, but the left-hander took the attack to India, made a 41-ball half-century, but it was always likely to prove problematic once you reach the middle overs, and India can put on the squeeze. You touched on it in the summary. Kuldeep is the kind of bowler who makes you do things that you don't want to do. He's that mate you've got who, whenever he kind of sends you a text saying, do you want to go out tonight? You should say no. You should say, I'm going to have a quiet night tonight. I've got stuff on tomorrow. But they have a way of, I think sometimes I'm that mate actually. They have a way of encouraging you to go out for that 1 or 2 beers, which can escalate. It's 3:30 in the morning. You're sleeping on the sofa. You've got something from the chip shop on the way home. You might have stole a couple of cigarettes as well. That's him,
but
to middle order batsman. We saw it with Glenn Maxwell against Australia, going back to a ball he didn't need to. Did that a couple of times today, the Tanzid sweep. And Jadeja, I think Nico said it on comms, he was man of the match all the way until the point where Kohli made the 100, which we'll come to in a little bit.
Kuldeep Yadav, I think, is the perfect example of just how strong this India side is, because they've just got such a ludicrous strength and depth. I forgot they had KL Rahul at 5 for a second. So when that third wicket fell and KL Rahul walked out, I was like, another one. They've got another unbelievable player coming to the wicket. And you see Kuldeep Yadav, if anything, in the field, he's diving around. He's making these unbelievable kind of stops out on the outfield, on the boundary rope. And you're kind of thinking, where is the chink in this armour? How the hell does anyone beat this India side? And we go back to Bangladesh quickly. Tanzid Hassan, as you said, he's only played his average was in the teens going into this game. He'd only played about 7 ODIs. There was a great quote about him getting selected in the squad for the Asia Games, which was his first maiden call-up. And it was basically a quote from a selector, be like, he'll be fine, don't worry. His nickname's Tamim. He's got the big ups from everyone. They've basically just gone you are the next one, you go and bat now. And it was a real flick of a switch from him and Litton Das, because I think they won about 10 after 4 or 5 overs. And they took an over from Shardul Thakur for about 17. And this was what was so frustrating from a Bangladesh perspective, is they were there, they had it, but it is a real great indication of the difference between 50 over cricket and 20 over cricket. Whereas Bangladesh were excellent for 23 overs, then they had a kind of 5 to 10 over period where they weren't excellent, and all of a sudden they're on the back foot. You have to have a level of sustained excellence throughout to be able to get the result you need.
Yeah, it felt like India started really putting the foot down when the crowd kind of showed up. So it was half empty or half full when play started, but halfway through, the punters were coming in. I love that ground at Pune. Great place to watch the game. Beautiful. Great deck to bat on typically as well. But yeah, the once the openers were gone. Also, we should mention early on in the piece, Hardik Pandya going down in his first over with that ankle problem, which hard to tell without getting the scans back and so on. The BCCI said they'll monitor it and let us know what's going on in the fullness of time. Kohli had to finish that over. That might be Hall of Fame worthy in a moment. Not the first time we've seen Virat Kohli bowl in a World Cup. I've got a memory of him bowling a couple of overs in the 2015 50 over World Cup.
There was an amazing period in that 2015 World Cup, I think, unless my kind of brain wants to remember this rather than it actually being true, but where it was like Kohli and de Villiers all having a little role at the same time.
I think they were doing it because they had the theory that they would create areas because batsmen would be too reluctant to attack them. Couldn't possibly get out to Virat Kohli. it out to AB de Villiers.
I love that
and it
stuff.
did mean they were vaguely economical.
That's when people open with the worst bowler in club cricket, because he's like, go on, take a risk, lads.
Yeah.
Or he just sneaks through. You go like, this lad's actually the one that's rubbish. Instead it's AB de Villiers.
So Kohli, yeah, funny as it is, bloke off the wrong foot,
Yeah.
swinging it in, off cutters. The real story there's Hardik Pandya. It's kind of interesting. Like their next game isn't for a few days. I'll bring it up here in front of me now. Their next game's against New Zealand on Sunday in Dharamshala, so 3-day break. But Dharamshala is typically where you play one fewer spinner. So if this was in Chennai next game, obviously Ashwin plays. But if they're going to get Ashwin in to bolster their batting depth to at least in some way make up for Pandya, improbable as it is they'll go that way, they'd have to reconfigure the whole lineup and get rid of one of the other spinners. They're not going to do that. So then you've got Ishan Kishan for pure firepower, using him as a bat and relying on the same 5 bowlers as today, not having a 6 bowler. Pretty risky proposition in a one-day international, as we saw today. If Kohli had to bowl 10 overs, it's a different story altogether, probably.
It's exciting, though.
It's exciting, but it's a different game of cricket. Or they might go with Shami, which feels to me like the more logical step. But if you take Shami in, you're weakening your batting.
You have Shardul at 7.
Yes, that's
like
right.
That, and that feels too extreme. It feels like this is the conversation we have forever with India. It's like we're trying to fit this kind of like perfect team into the conditions, and where it's like, oh, is Ashwin right? Is it right to play Ashwin and Jadeja in England? And I'm all kind of always of the opinion like, yeah, maybe seam is better in England, but Ravi Ashwin is better than every seamer wherever it is, basically.
Quite right.
And whether there's a case for, even though we're in Dharamshala, like we want to have an extra seamer, like who is the best cricketer who completes? Because he's coming in as the 6th bowler. So you're kind of like, who's the best 6th bowler and batter for this side, basically? And if you have Mohammad Shami, I feel like then you're just picking an out-and-out bowler, obviously, and you're weakening your batting lineup too much. Whereas if you went on the flip side and just I'll just pick Ashwin, but that's an easy option. Picking Ashwin, you're never going to make a team bad by picking Ashwin.
No, and yeah, that's the argument, isn't it, in England all the time. You pick Ashwin because he's an extraordinary cricketer. It's not about team balance, it's about having someone who's a phenomenal player, full stop. Anyway, that's one for the selectors. And New Zealand have a bit of a free hit at India, but you could flip it and say India have a free hit at New Zealand. It'll be first versus second. Whoever wins that game, it's almost impossible they'll miss a semi-final, given the bit of congestion there for 3rd and 4th. So plenty to play for in a few days' time. From back to Bangladesh's innings, Shanto's acting captain today. Shakib Al Hassan missing with a quad injury. Not the first time he's injured that quad, so that's one to watch there for Bangladesh. But he went back to Jadeja, and you are not allowed to go back to Jadeja. He bowls so quickly. He's Derek Underwood in these one-day games. So he bowls anywhere between 75 and 98 kilometres an hour. It's a pretty big variation, but his stock delivery is the quicker one. You know, the bit of genius we saw against Australia when he dragged it all the way back, that's the change-up. His stock delivery is quick enough that going back, it's got to be so short to justify that move, and that's where Shanto was undone.
I think it was Michael Clarke who had this quote about playing spin in the past. I might be wrong, but he talks about people assume that when you're at your quickest batting is when you're facing 90 mile an hour because the bowling's at its quickest. He says, actually, that's incorrect. When you're facing a spinner, that's when you've got to be at your quickest, because you've got to be the quickest on your feet, reacting and creating the pace. And it's when I see people facing Jadeja where I realise just how much of a skill that is, because Jadeja is bowling. At times today he was bowling 62 mile an hour. If you go down to the nets and you face someone bowling 62 mile an hour, it's quick, and people are using their feet, getting down the track to him, and having to pick up length so quickly. And that's why he gets all these people out kind of LBW, because they have that split seconds to judge the length. They opt to go backwards, and it's too quick. It's not short enough, and it happened again. In terms of other Indian bowlers being perfect, I wanted to touch on Jasprit Bumrah's Yorker to get Mahmudullah, which was unbelievable, and it reminded me. I feel it's very important. I've recently resubscribed to The Athletic after reading an article about Robert Zerbi, foot on the ball, changed my life 5-a-side. But anyway, it reminded me of, they did a piece on penalty taking and Harry Kane, and there are 2 methods to penalty taking. There's goalkeeper dependent penalties and there are goalkeeper independent penalties. It's basically where you take a strategy of whether you care about what the goalkeeper does or not. And so you go, Harry Kane is goalkeeper independent. He doesn't care where the goalkeeper's going to dive, what he's going to do. He knows he's going to put the ball in the top corner or whatever. And it just made me think that York from Jasprit Bumrah. Jasprit Bumrah is a goalkeeper, is a batter independent bowler. He doesn't care. Everyone knows what's about to happen. It's just a case of, I know you are not good enough to keep this out. And it was just, there was nothing you could do. It was bowling perfection. And with that, every time I look at the screen and India are playing, there's some superhero on there, and it's very demoralising, actually.
It was one of two pieces of commentary from Mark Nicholas that got me going today as well, where Nico really gets horny, doesn't he? Oh yes, he's something else, this guy. And then when Rohit Sharma hit a cover drive early in the reply, it might have been the first over of the reply. I've not even mentioned Rohit yet. Incidentally, he goes, well. Love you, Nico. But yeah, the way the innings transpired, it meant that, 257, I think they got, 256 perhaps. It was going to be, it all depended, they do okay towards the end. Mamadala makes some runs towards the end at a decent enough clip. It wasn't a complete debacle the last 10 overs, but they need everything to go right. I mean, in the way that India had KL Rahul's brilliant catch go right. They need stuff like that to play out throughout the defence of something like 256. And Rohit Sharma took that away from them. You talk about interdependence and whatever else. Rohit Sharma, if you are bowling to him inside the first 10 overs, it is almost irrelevant who you are if he can get through the first over or two. He was on 31 when Shubman Gill was on 6. That six he hit over mid-wicket, it's almost cliche to say this about Rohit now, but there are so few movements. It's just like, how can he hit the ball so fucking far by not swinging at all? It's all timing, it's all eye, it's all skill, and I guess to an extent it's about fast twitch fibres in his wrist and whatever else, because you can't hit that ball unless you really give it a wallop the way that he does. But still, he gave Shubman, who of course didn't start the tournament, had dengue fever and so on, he gave him a nice ride in. And by the time he decided to put the foot down, a couple of times Shubman danced down the track in one over. I think Nasim was bowling at the time. Hit him over the head twice. He looks a bit old school, doesn't he, Shubman, when he dances down? He's got to hit it a lot harder than Rohit does, but the result's the same when they put on 90-odd.
For me, it wasn't necessarily the attacking shots. I think it was Rohit Sharma. There was one forward defensive in particular where I went, Bangladesh are fucked. Yeah. There's literally no chance because they missed their length and a boundary's hit. But when it was Bangladesh bowled the perfect ball and Sharma just kind of big front pad or bat even just went, nah, you're all right. I was like, there's no way, you're not getting this lad out. And then I always find it funny when batters get out in the way that Rohit Sharma did. He's been caught on the pull, but he's absolutely laced it. That ball does go for 6 if there isn't a fielder there. And in theory, all that happens, and then somehow the batter is the one that has to depart. And it's like, no, that was perfect. There was someone there, which is the rules of the game.
Beautiful quirk of the game. One of 3 Indian batters, first 3 didn't they? Because he, then Gill and Shreyas all hold out to the leg side, and by that point it was a fait accompli that Kohli was going to steer them to victory, and so he did. Bangladesh probably left it a bit late to bring Mehdi Hassan on. I thought, in the absence of Shakib, he's your senior spinner. Yeah. Don't wait till over 19. If anyone's going to get on a roll, it's probably going to be him.
Sure.
So they fucked that up. But again, you give some concessions to Shanto captaining this side unexpectedly in the absence of Shakib Al Hassan. Then Kohli gets moving, and by the way, Rohit overtook Conway for runs in the tournament. He's on 265 now. So wonderful. I think he had the most runs in the World Cup 4 years ago. I'm pretty sure. Someone will correct me if I'm wrong, but I know that Rohit hit a stack of centuries, and I reckon he was leading run scorer there. So it reinforces the point Geoff and I were making after their win over Australia, that this guy does step up in World Cups, and that's why he's such an appropriate leader for this team. There was that chaotic over to Virat Kohli that, again, could be Hall of Fame worthy on another day by poor old Hassan. It's his third over. He gets Rohit Sharma, right? Yeah. I know he's pulled it straight to him, but he's hit for 6 the ball before. Then he gets Rohit Sharma. Then his next ball goes for 14. I mean, a combination of Kohli hitting 2 into the onside from a front foot no ball, free hit, another front foot no ball that Kohli hits for 4, then the most majestic 6 from Kohli over mid-on where he knew it was a free hit. I mean, what's that bit of commentary from Jared Waitley last year? It's a shot of an emperor, that kind of thing, right? The way he plays the shot, holds the pose over long on. And that gave Kohli a hope of making 100. Yeah. And then the fun began where the numbers were doing as they were with KL Rahul against Australia, when it looked like the equation was just going to be too much for Kohli to reach his 48th one-day 100. But with Rahul down the other end, he helped him make it possible.
You can't. He needed 20. India needed 28 and Virat Kohli was on 73. He needed 27 of 28. That is park cricket shit where it's like, right, let's get this lad 100 because it's nice. You're meant to do that if someone's never scored 100 before. Virat Kohli, I reckon, scored close to 1,000 centuries in his life, including like nets in the back garden or whatever. And somehow, like, they went about it. I just want to quickly touch on Hassan Mahmood because he came in for Taskin Ahmed, and it's that same thing of like India keep on coming at you. He bumped Rohit Sharma. The whole point is this lad's quick. Rohit Sharma ducks, and it was a big moment. It was like, you've got Rohit Sharma ducking, and then the very next ball, he just pulled him for 4, no issues, no problems. And that same thing happened again in that over where he finally got Sharma on the pull, and then Kohli came about and, well, got himself to 73 and then onwards to a century.
I mean, it was crazy, wasn't it? So 19, he needed the last 19, and that's strictly speaking not true, right? He can hit a 6 as he did with fewer than 6 to win, but you see 19 from 19, that's how you apply it in your brain. Takes down the Sims, hits him for a 6 and a 4 or maybe a 2 as well. So it was within striking distance. Hit 2 2s in 1 over to get him to 94 with 8 to win, which felt like perfection. Then he didn't take the single, which was great. I mean, that kind of feeds into your point about what are we actually watching here. Yeah. But I suppose net run rate's only calculated at the end of the over. So I had, for a moment, I'm like, you can't really be doing that in a tournament like this, but equally, so long as it was brought up in that over. As it turned out, they had to go to the next over, took the single from the last ball, gets to strike back, first ball of what became the final over, down the leg side, big Dick Kettleborough, and you might be listening, Richard, we like you a lot, keeps his arms down and all of India's size, and Kohli just stares at the bowler like, what the fuck are you doing? Trying to bowl a wide to me. We're not going to have me missing out on 100 here, buddy. And then, predictably, hits a 6. Over mid-wicket, gives it absolutely everything. It's so an immediate, iconic World Cup 2023 moment. Kohli making 100 to bring up the win. He's 48th in one-day cricket. I know we've said this tournament's lacked for big moments a wee bit over the first fortnight, and yes, the game was won, but the game within a game there at the end was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think social media producers across the land were celebrating when Rich keeps his arms and you give him the moment. It was so inevitable. I just seeing like it happen where it's like he's going to hit a 6, he's going to get 100 and they're going to win. It's all going to be in the same ball. Like this is a team that's lost 12 wickets in 4 matches, and 3 of those were in like the first 9 balls they faced. Like they probably lost 9 wickets in the last however many millions of runs they've scored. I think it's a very daunting task for anyone coming up against India at the moment.
Right, Cam, with that said, with Kohli's century suitably celebrated, it's time for us to move on to the Final Word Hall of Fame. The Final Word Hall of Fame is brought to you by Westfield London and Westfield Stratford City. Now, Cam, you helpfully provided Geoff and I with the crucial information yesterday. The kids eat free at half-term at these magnificent shopping centres. But we didn't know what half-term was. We applied that to our thinking yesterday. We reflected on times when, as children ourselves, in a school holiday, we would have made the absolute most of kids eating free. My youngest daughter, Peggy, is inside there. Rach, my wife, told me before for dinner, she ate an adult-size pasta we had last night. Had some mates over for dinner.
Starting strong.
She's starting strong. She's going to fucking destroy Kids Eat Free at Westfield London when she's of age. That's all coming up in half term. Were you that way? I mean, your metabolism's still broadly in check. You're a bit younger than I am.
Well,
so you can still get away with this kind of shit.
Look, it's a great talent of mine. It's a great trait. It's something I've actually... Kids eat free, and luckily I both have a fantastic metabolism and I'm cursed with looking extremely young.
You do look a bit young,
I'll have a shave and I'll be straight in there.
Yeah.
So not only can kids eat free, but young-looking mid-20s people or late 20s, to be perfectly correct, they eat free as well.
We are going out to Westfield London next week to buy me some nice new clothes for Australia this summer. So when we're there, free. Well, we might take. Who knows? Might take one of the kids with us. We're not in school yet, but it is half term, and they are by definition children. Westfield London, Westfield Stratford City, more extra, less ordinary. What we do here is pick out our favourite final word moment of the day. Cam, there was a pretty obvious one when India were fielding.
Yeah, so there was a single that went out to Jadeja, backward point, and obviously Jadeja feels the ball. Bat gets home easily, it hits the stumps, deflects away, and Bangladesh cross for a second run. What then happens is KL Rahul, the wicketkeeper, has trotted around to round backward square leg and kind of tamely lobs the ball towards the bowler's end, and lo and behold, direct hit again, deflects away again, and India get 3 for the price of 1. And what I didn't understand is this was labelled as sloppy from India, and I was like, they're being perfect, even in like when they're not trying to be. Jadeja's direct hit, brilliant, incredible. KL Rahul, without thinking, again, another direct hit. And it was, if anything for me, it was an example of India will not be beaten ever, potentially for the rest of this millennium, because even when they're not trying, they're hitting the stumps. And what I don't understand is when people, this is a bugbear of mine, is that it's a bugbear of other people's, that when fielders throw out the stumps unnecessarily. Because I think it's a big part of how teams kind of keep moving as a unit. Everyone's in their positions, everyone knows what's going on. If you're at long on, you're moving on to mid on to back up the stumps. Like, it's a way of keeping basically children interested when you're fielding and they have nothing else to do. And so if you didn't do that and you didn't have a shot at the stumps, I reckon fielding standards across the globe would go down. So
have a ping, back him up.
Exactly.
Got him. Yeah, I'm with you. Anti-Hall of Fame to start with. Rohit Sharma caught driving at 215 kilometres an hour from Mumbai to Pune overnight. You can't be doing that, Rohit. We love you. I mean, we love you. But he didn't get pinged or anything. They said they gave him, according to one report I read in an Indian newspaper, they just recommended that next time he gets the team bus. I mean, you can't be doing that, mate. You're endangering both yourself and other road users. I don't care who you are. Already mentioned Nico's commentary. Oh, there's a guy, TMS picked this up. I think it was Agnew picked this up earlier.
Yeah.
Bloke he saw taking a photo in front of their box. I know the radio boxes and the broadcast booths there at Pune. You've got like a little platform beneath you. Anyway, a guy had a T-shirt on, or a sign saying, "My bank password is Kohli 100 times 100." Don't give your fucking bank password away. You can show your love for Virat Kohli in other ways, believe me. And also another Virat one, when he brought up his half-century, he took a single to mid-wicket, I think it was.
Yeah.
The ball went spilling away behind the central umpire. He's well through the single, but the ball was still moving. So Kohli ran behind it and flicked it up to himself and hit it up a few times in a row like a hockey ball, then hit it back to the bowler. How much front is that?
Hey, what a prick, mate. What a prick. I've shown him I hate him. I absolutely hate him.
It was brilliant. Love it. Absolutely love it. It was a day for India, a day for Virat Kohli. India, as I mentioned before, play New Zealand on Sunday at Dharamshala. Bangladesh have got South Africa. Again, they now must win at the Wankhede. Keeps the doctor away on Tuesday. And tomorrow is Australia and Pakistan at the mighty Chinnaswamy at Bangalore. Geoff will be back with me for that. Thank you, Cam Ponsonby. India victorious once again. 4 on the trot. Our coverage for Westfield, London and Westfield, Stratford City. More extra, less ordinary. See you tomorrow.